we have spawning down in the bottom left position of the map. It is the Blue Terran player from Team GP. Give it up for the surprising, very impressive results of Arctur.
Oh yeah, plenty to talk about here, but Arctur coming out of the gate hot and fast here. One of the surprise victories in one of the surprise players for sure here in Group C. And his opponent in the top right-hand side, it's unsurprising that this player is currently undefeated. His name is Team Liquid's Clem. Now, I'm not actually sure. I'll have to check. Yeah, Clem right now, Steadfast is 4-0, 8-0. He's one of only 4 players in the entire event who has not yet dropped a map. Can you guess who the other 3 players are without cheating and looking at Liquipedia?
I literally already have it open.
Oh, you monster. Well, spoil it for us. Who else has yet to drop a map in this entire tournament?
Well, unsurprisingly, it's Cyril.
What?
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? Can you believe that the greatest player to ever touch the game? I will defend that to the death, by the way. That's my hill to die on.
Yeah, man.
Is 10-0? That's crazy. But then another one that's not all that surprising as well is Raynor.
Sure.
Still a very, very impressive result. But one that might cause people to be like, wow, impressive, is the other Team Liquid bro, who's really been popping off recently, Mana.
Yeah, man, like you said, the first 3, Cyril, Clem, Raynor, no surprises. Those guys are like the 3 horsemen of the EU apocalypse in StarCraft. They're just so dang good. Mana is also incredible, right? But he's usually not part of the conversation when we think about absolutely untouchable, insane players at the zenith of their careers right now. He did really well in the TSL 5 a few months ago, and it's so good to see him tearing it up here at DreamHack Summer, because he is a player who works really hard, and he definitely deserves all the acclaim he's been getting.
Absolutely, and we do have a bit of a Reaper engagement at Arctur's base over there. Oh, no, looks like it was the SCV scouting in. The other Reaper, does actually get the first shot on Clem's Reaper, gets the first shot on Arctur, so Arctur cannot kind of stop moving. And he will regen up that HP, so he is going to be okay, but actually gets kind of some corner snipes, is what I've heard TLO describe them as, when you kind of waddle around a corner and you take the slightly less efficient path. Just the way pathing works. But now 2 Reapers for Clem, and a Hellion as well. But of course, Arctur did build that in-base command center, so he is pretty safe here, even with that Reaper moving out.
Yeah, one of the things you want to do, obviously, if you move across with those Reapers and Hellion, you want to slow down the natural command center building of your opponent, but Arctur very, very cautiously building his on the high ground. Clem, of course, building his on the low ground. He's a little bit behind his opponent. We can see the orbital command already finishing up for Arctur. This Reaper going to get in for 1 grenade, but not anything else. 1 SCV kill going down. But Arctur a little bit ahead because he did have that earlier natural, whereas Clem went for the, I believe, the 1-1-1 a little bit more quickly because he did want that extra gas for the quick Raven out. So a bit of a difference in the build so far, but it looks like the players are both setting up for a bit of a longer game, which I think probably realistically favors Clem. But, we talked about the undefeated players, including Clem here, Steadfast. Steadfast, can you tell us about Arctur's run so far in this tournament? Because he has had a surprisingly successful DreamHack Summer.
Surprising is an understatement of the century. He did start off by 2-1 in Koss, which I know Koss has not won any of his sets yet. Ooh, this is a great lock-on, by the way, for Clem. He's going to grab the Cyclone of his opponent. Does sacrifice a couple of Hellions for it, but that was super worthwhile since that Cyclone has so much utility in the early game. And it will be able to kite a little bit, maybe able to get a lock-on, pick 1 or 2 more Marines off. That is really what Clem's looking for here. But yeah, sorry, Arctur, 2-1 Koss. He 2-1'd Gung Fu Banda, who is a very, very good player.
Yeah.
He did lose 0-2 to Denver, but then he 2-0'd Spots as well. Now, that's probably 2 of the 3 players he's beaten have been the lowest ranked.
Right.
But if he beats Bly, he's beaten everyone in the bottom 4. And that's pretty much going to guarantee him making it through.
Yeah, man, a win is a win, and you're absolutely correct, though. The road is uphill. I think if you watch traditional sports, they'll usually say his strength of schedule has been a little weak.
Yes.
I know they use that in American college football a lot. They're like, well, they're a good team, but their strength of schedule is really weak. But so he's got a couple big players ahead of him, but so far, those 3-1 victories, especially that win against Gung Fu, really surprising, and it's really cool to see a young player like Arctur, coming up and doing some real damage and making a name for himself here so early in his career.
Yeah, and really a threat to make it into that later stage of the tournament. I do think we're going to see a little bit of aggression potentially coming out of Clem. He did, of course, go for that third command center. Both players did. But he started up Viking production a little bit earlier, and we might see him try and take position on his opponent's third base. But it could just be, trying to build up that Viking count, and that's all.
Yeah, always tough to know with Clem because he seems to have such mastery of the early game and even the mid game a bit. I mean, he shines in the late game, let's be honest. Clem late game is just terrifying. But he's scary at all points in the game right now, and you never really know. With some players like Bly, you're like, okay, early game, we're going to see some Bly shenanigans, and he's going to really shine at the beginning of the game because he knows he has just such mastery of the early game mechanics and the early game star sense. But Clem is one of those players that's a little hard to read because not only are Terran builds a little more pliable than some other builds, you've got a factory, but who knows what comes out of it. You can change your entire build. But Clem is so good at all different points in the matchup that it's hard to tell. And look at this, third base coming down. Transfer for Arctur, and Clem's not able to put any of that pressure on. He's getting chased away pretty easily.
Yeah, he did get a lock on both the Raven and... Ooh, that's a great lock on, but he loses vision. If he could have kept that lock on, he might have actually been able to get that tank. And we will see Clem move out here as Arctur lands his third base. So he is going to try and take advantage of that Viking count. But of course, the Raven count for Arctur has been kept pumped up, juiced up at 3. And important to note, Clem's stim finished up and Arctur's is not yet done.
All these other Terrans.
This is a bad timing to move out.
Oh my god. I was going to say all these other Terrans and their pumped up Ravens. Better run, because Clem's moving into the third base, man. SCV's pulled off the line to deal with this. Tank sieging up a little bit late here. A lot of auto turrets going down, though, and that's going to help tear through whatever Arctur's got. This is a rough fight, Steadfast.
Yeah, this is so good for Clem. He's already killed 15 SCVs. He will ultimately get cleaned up, I do believe, but he's going to take... Oh, does he get that last tank shot? He does. And that is going to mean that the tank count, I think they both lost, 4 tanks in this game. But Clem, he is very far ahead in workers. Now, Arctur does keep 1 Raven alive, which of course does add a lot of utility. But upgrade timing's pretty even. We did see Clem delay his combat shields a little bit there for just a little bit stronger of a push. So it is allowing Arctur's combat shields to catch up. But that worker count, he just gained the advantage in. Super worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. The worker count paying off for him because, as you said, his third a little bit slower. But if we look at the upgrades tab here, look very even for both players. In fact, the production tab overall looks almost identical for both these guys. Interesting play from Clem, though. Look at this, adding on another factory. Oh, now that's wicked cool.
Viking landing in the main base. Gonna pick off 2 SCVs, make it 3, and a Marine.
Sure, why not?
Bad. 4 SCVs and a Marine. Ooh, meanwhile, this spotter Marine doing an excellent job for Arctur right there. Clem, though, he scans and he's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no. Definitely what he was thinking. That a second Viking, by the way, landing in the natural, picking off a few more SCVs. The SCV count now 10 in favor of Clem. And since his third base is down, the base count very even. He's adding on that second factory and now starting barracks, or command center number 4, rather. Clem is in a strong position this game. As far as economy goes, his army supply a little behind, but I don't think Arctur could feel safe pushing out at any point. I mean, he might try and push out, but I feel like Clem has plenty on the other side, right?
Yeah, Clem is well stocked on tanks. This Viking comes back into the main base, picks off another 4 workers, and tank count is even, but Clem is on that double tank protection, which means he is going to, well, he's down 1 tank, but he's about to be up 1 tank once these 2 tanks do finish up. This double drop, I'm really curious as to what it's looking for here. Maybe just looking to jump into the main base, and he does force a reaction out of Arctur.
That was really well done. I think both players saw that coming, and Clem was like, okay, I'm going to try and boost in sneak around the bottom side and go into the main base, but really what he's doing is forcing a lot of the units of Arctur up right now. Arctur has not seen this big push out from Clem, which means even though the siege tanks, oh my god, Clem running into siege tank fire though with all his marines from both sides here. I don't know if this is brave or foolish for Clem. He is going to clean up all the tanks, but the marine count is just so even right now. Who's going to win this one, Steadfast?
I think Arctur is just going to barely push it back, but once those 2 tanks get turned back on, it is going to be very difficult for the Russian Terran player, and already losing one of those tanks on the rally, and Clem, he has got a very strong position against Arctur. Now, these tanks do not threaten the base per se, but they almost cut off reinforcements to it. And, well, are we going to see Arctur go for a break here? I don't think he has the units for it. No, it looks like he was just readjusting the positioning on that tank. No, maybe.
This would be really bold if he tried to break these tanks here. He's got a lot of bio queued up right now, and these bios are just going to run in that meat grinder tank. Arctur will have the ability to interference matrix one of those tanks very soon, but it's going to be a while. I think he's trying to show off, maybe scare Clem away, like, hey, you don't have any Vikings, you don't have any air control. I've got a Raven, what can you do? But it's not going to be too long. Clem has his reinforcements here now, and Clem's entire army has been brought to bear. He's 1 upgrade cycle ahead. Okay, not anymore. The upgrade's now even. But he had a split second there where he was 1 upgrade cycle ahead, and Clem's just going to dive bomb on these tanks again.
And he has +1 and that massive tank count lead. 9 tanks to 2, and Clem is going to take the victory off of that double factory, that great positioning, and just what we've come to expect from Clem, which is just pristine, excellent play, great multitasking, good decision making, and really no weaknesses. But Arctur, I mean, he went toe-to-toe for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Arctur doing a really, really nice job in that game. It's hard to, I feel, it was Clem, I don't remember if you remember the tournament, but somebody was doing, is it Base Trade TV doing the holdout challenges?
Yes, yeah, it is.
I feel like Clem was on one of the early holdout challenges. I may be mistaken. I know Raynor's done one. Maybe Mana's done. Anyway, I feel like Clem would be a great player for holdout challenges because I feel like if he wants to destroy you early, he can just walk across the map and wipe you into oblivion.
Yeah, he can kill you with the first Reaper. Like, literally, I think he could kill 90% of players with his first Reaper. Now, it wouldn't kick you out of the match, but let's say he just decided to go 3 racks Reaper. I don't think most players could deal with it regardless of their race. Like, I actually think he could just do that every game in a holdout challenge. And the only answer to that would be to play Terran and lift.
Surely that's disallowed. It must be. Ugh.
No, it's encouraged.
Is it really? Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
It makes playing as Zerg a little bit less than ideal because you have to get up to mutas in ZVT.
Okay. Okay.
TLO had some really interesting matches actually on his holdout challenge.
Man.
Baby Marine actually almost beat him because TLO was a little bit too overeager, and it made for a really, really great game. And if Baby Marine had played for the timer instead of playing for the win, I think he would have won by like 4 minutes. But as it was, he was over aggressive and ran into some burrowed banes, and yeah.
Oh, wild. Well, we're getting into game 2 now with Clem and Arctur. Arctur still yet to win a map in this series, but Clem, of course, a formidable opponent, expected to top this group. I think no question. If we look at this group, Clem has defeated most ever. Let's see, what's Clem's record so far? 2-0 Denver, 2-0 Spatz, 2-0 Bly, and now he's on his way for what could be a 2-0 win over Arctur. So we're getting to game number 2 now. The map is Eternal Empire, the old classic. I think we've seen this in almost all of our matchups today, Steadfast. Is it any surprise that the players are relying on maps that they're very familiar with to win their games?
It makes a ton of sense. Like it's very rare to veto this. It's a comfort map that most players aren't going to eliminate.
Very good observation. Well, let's hop into Eternal Empire, this comfort map for game number 2.
All right, we have spawning down in the bottom left position of the map. It is Team GP's blue Terran player from Russia, Arctur. The number of times I do that is too damn high.
I feel like it's like anytime you choke when you're drinking water and you're just like, how many times in my life have I had to identify red and blue? And of course I'm going to mess it up a surprising number of times.
Yep. It proves to me that natural ones in D&D are real.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Arctur's definitely red opponent, spawning the top right-hand side from Team Liquid. I'm trying to get this nickname to stick for him, Steadfast, but it's not working. It's the Little Corporal himself.
Ooh.
Clem.
I like that. The Little Corporal.
I explain it on stream like once a day, and somebody's like, what do you mean, the Little Corporal? And I'm like, it's the nickname of Napoleon, another short Frenchman who is very good at leading armies, and from a young age showed incredible prowess at his craft. The Little Corporal is perfect, and everybody's like, nah, we'll just call him Clem. All right, fine. I won't be a cool tastemaker, but Clem will, because he's going double racks.
I like that. I like a Napoleonic nickname because I think that really does. Maybe you would go with Marine Lord for that though, because Napoleon was obvious. Like Clem is just this cute little kid, and he's like, he's this like super lovable little guy, and then Marine Lord's like, he's. It's not that he's not lovable. I actually find him very funny, but he's like very in his opponent's face, and like definitely like a very strong like ego player. By the way, we are seeing Clem. Wait, what? Oh my goodness, he didn't see it.
Arctur was just given a golden ticket, and then he didn't open the bar of chocolate. What on earth? Clem left his gates open, and Arctur not scouting in. Now, he didn't see the factory. He didn't see a second command center, so he may be like a little suspicious, but oh man, this is looking real rough. He's got to get a Cyclone out, or he's going for Hellion. Okay, he's got to get this Hellion out real fast and micro it like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, he did go for this double gas setup, which is of course the more defensive anti-proxy 2-racks build, so it will do well against regular 2-racks. But we do see Clem, he's actually just going for a couple of Reapers, and it's Marine production behind this and a bunker. So he's actually just chilling. He's big chilling right now.
Big chilling. This is fascinating. I've never seen it. It's rare to see a 2-racks opener and then go into like defensive play from here. He is going to drop down that tech lab to swap over and maybe get some early tanks out. So I think Clem might be angling up just for a really powerful push, maybe a minute or two earlier than we normally see. Again, my suspicion is he'll swap over for tanks, keep cranking out Marines, Marauders, and go for a mid-game push. Does that sound right to you, Steadfast?
I think the first unit will be Cyclone, just because Cyclone Raven is so versatile against everything defensively. But we will see in just a moment. Yeah, it is going to be that
Good
Cyclone.
Call. Good call.
But I think this does give him the opportunity to get a very quick push going. If he gets a quick tech lab on one of those barracks, normally you're on reactor production for a while on those barracks, so you don't get stim for a while. He could get a little bit more aggressive a little bit earlier on.
Man, on the other side of the map, this is really fascinating. We see a drop coming out from Arctur. He's got 2 Marines, 4 Marines, and a tank. This would be about the most odd drop ever, if he does indeed. But he's got these queued up to the front of his base. The medevac looking like he wants to pick this up. Is Arctur just going to pick these units up, go across the map, and drop outside of Clem's natural? This could be very strange.
He might be doing this in response to an early bunker for defense. He might be thinking, you're going for a fast third command center off this. That must be it. And so he's like, okay, I'll get a tank and I'll siege that, and I'll get position and I'll do some good stuff. But Clem, with the excellent little Reaper scout right there, is going to see exactly what's coming. Now, Arctur, he actually hasn't responded yet. He could have picked off that Reaper.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, we'll have to see now if Arctur decides to still go for this. Oh, okay, it's going to be 2 tanks in the medevac for positioning, and then he's just going to go for a very committed, almost Doom-esque drop.
Yeah, this classic early bunny push. Well, it's not even a bunny push because he's loading everything up into the medevac. But yeah, you're absolutely correct, Steadfast. He's heading across right now.
Clem just got an SCV kill and almost blocked the factory from landing right there. And it would have been just 1 Marine for a little bit, so that actually would have been a little bit of time. Wow, 2 SCVs going down right there. Arctur, man, Clem, that's what I'm talking about. Like, Clem just finds so much with so little.
He really does, and so much with so little, I hope, is what his defense is going to be, because there's not a lot back home. He's got the Cyclone, he's got a handful of Marines, sure. This Raven might be able to disable one of the medevacs if it tries really quickly. It isn't. Oh, it's just going to drop the auto turret here instead, and Clem is all over this. That is an ill-advised drop from Arctur. What was he thinking, Steadfast?
I think he was just a little bit overconfident. This is a problem that a lot of Terran players run into, especially when they're on the rise. I feel like foreign Terrans fall into this category a little bit more than Korean Terrans. And this is actually, I feel, what separates Clem from the pack is they'll be like, okay, I've done a build order, so I'm going to commit with my units. Even if they see something that looks a little bit ill-advised, they don't make that snap call, that split-second decision and be like, nope, I can't. Clem, every time I've casted him, every time I've seen him play, he will immediately make that very mature decision and be like, no. Unfortunately, Arctur, a little bit maybe less experienced, goes in with there and ends up losing a medevac with 5 Marines, a siege tank, and really doesn't kill like anything for it. Actually, no, he literally killed nothing. Those 2 Reapers were from earlier.
Wow. It's so funny to call Arctur a little less experienced because he's like 3 years older than Clem is, I think.
Oh, that is crazy.
That's wild. Third base is finished up for both players here. Clem's gonna move out to the third because he knows he can defend. He's been like, what do you got? I just destroyed your initial aggression. There's no way you can put pressure on this third base, so he's gonna move it out before making the orbital command. Whereas Arctur, I think, has that orbital command and is only now just moving out. So Arctur maybe a bit ahead economically. The worker count fairly even. The third base is finishing at the same time. Just a couple extra mules here and there. So far though, a very tight game with Stim. The biggest difference. Arctur Stim very, very late.
That's kind of what I want to highlight about Clem. That specific little interaction you just you highlighted, where he chose to float his orbital command over to the new base, even though it wasn't, or sorry, his command center before it was an orbital command. Obviously, he still makes it into an orbital command, but he knew because he deflected that aggression so flawlessly. He also had 9 SCVs, maybe at the time 7 SCVs that were mining long distance, and he knows that that's more value than a mule coming 30 seconds earlier. He knows that it is worth so much more to get those SCVs mining just a little bit faster. And this push, by the way, looks like 4 SCVs did go down in the natural to a little bit of harass, but this push is very, very frightening.
This is really cool, though. Arctur had 2 Marines out, one at the Zelnuggle Watchtower and one at this south, just waiting, watching, wanting Clem to move into the third base, and he set up a little honey trap for him, but Clem, I think, a little too smart. He's going to rotate back around and reset, hoping that Arctur tries to follow him across. Oh, this is so cute from Clem. He's going to send the Marine out forward to scout for the tanks, and is Arctur going to be foolish enough to try and move across the map? Oh, I don't think so. I think he's just got to defend for now. Oh my gosh, this is some big brain play on both sides here. Arctur with the scouts, and Clem just setting himself up for a trap.
That's really cool, and that is extremely high level play from both players, and I'm really glad you pointed that out because the traps can be so effective. Like if you can do that, he could have gotten 25 Marines there. You know, especially Arctur's was just setting up at the front. That was just good vision, but Clem's was hidden behind the rocks there, behind that porch kind of. And ooh, nice interference matrix will disable one of those tanks. But Arctur has 2, and he will be able to take out the lead tank of Clem's.
Should be able to, yeah. The Viking paid the iron price there for getting that interference matrix off. Did die. Those Vikings able to snipe it. But I do want to point out really quickly, if you open up that upgrades tab right now, this fight is not going to go well for Arctur, especially if his tanks are unsieged. Clem should be able to just destroy him. Now, Arctur is playing to his strengths here, which I really like. He's got those Vikings out, which means he's got air superiority, so he's using the Vikings to spot for the tanks. He needs to siege up those tanks and, like, slowly, 1 pixel at a time, 1 square at a time, move them over. But here we go. The big engagement. Steadfast. Call this one. What's up?
Well, we're going to have 2 tanks picked up for free, and Clem, recognizing how bad that situation is, immediately gets out of there. And, well, that's just the right call. He loses 2 tanks, and that will mean the tank count does favor Arctur by a little bit. But Clem, he didn't need to do too much with that push. It is much better to snap call, get out of there, and save your army than trying to commit to a bad fight. And if he had committed to that fight, he probably loses everything.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a big concave for Clem.
Oh my god, this is terrifying. The upgrades are even for these 2 players. Combat shields, stim, and +1/+1 done on both sides. A fairly even trade. Arctur actually pulling a little bit ahead there, despite Clem having a bit of an upgrade advantage. I think Clem fighting underneath the auspices of Arctur's tanks there did allow him to get allow Arctur to get up a couple pot shots off. If I could distract you for a moment, Steadfast, I do just want to point out, remember last game how Clem was making tanks 2 at a time, and Arctur was only on 1 factory the entire game? He's learning from his mistakes. He realized last time that Clem got the upper hand on the tank count on him, so he's like, okay, he must have mixed another factory. He may have scouted it, I'm not sure, but he's got a second factory. He needs to swap it over right away to keep this tank count going, because the tank count now just barely in favor of Arctur, but as you said last game, Clem doing 2 at a time now, and it's not going to be too long before Clem is even on tanks and maybe ahead.
Oh no, the timing of these turrets could not be any more heartbreaking for Arctur right there. They were about 3 seconds away from murking every single medevac.
Oof.
Both medevacs. And unfortunately, instead, the medevacs do unload. They get 12 SCVs. Now, Clem does lose all of those units, and he actually does fall a little bit down in army supply. But now he is up 15 workers with a much faster 4th base. Arctur's 4th command center was actually delayed by, it looks like, the 2 Marines here. Yeah, this little bad boy on the right side got that kill.
Yeah, and, absolutely. And we're going to see Arctur moving out, which I think is probably the right call right now. He's so far behind now. He's suffered so many losses. He hasn't been able to put any real pressure on Clem right now. His army supply is slightly ahead. His upgrade's about to pop. He may have a chance here. Look at those vehicle weapons level 1 timings. Goodness gracious. But 2-2 about to finish up here for Arctur. As soon as that 2-2 is finished, I think he's going to try and make a play on the 3rd and 4th bases of Clem. Clem not going to let that happen, though. Moving out already.
Oh, that was a really cool move from Clem. He recognized the Raven was ever so slightly ahead of the army. He stims forward and baits out one of its very valuable spells. Now, there is still a lot of Raven energy left. One of the Ravens does have full energy, but that was still a very nifty little play coming to Clem right there. And knowing that his opponent won't push up into him, even with that anti-armor missile hitting home. But still, the Viking count so big for Arctur right now, and Clem, he's got to be so careful about this this Liberator siege leapfrog.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge deal. When those Liberators start sieging up, I was going to say Clem has defender's advantage. Oh my gosh, Arctur catching him with his tanks, unsieged a little bit. Immediately, interference matrix sees on 2 of those tanks there. The top north side flank tank, the tanks on the north flank are going to go down here, but Arctur did lose an awful lot of his bio units. Clem actually taking a really good fight from that defensive position. A surprising engagement from Arctur, and I'm amazed that Clem lived through it.
Yeah, I actually thought that was going to be terrible for Clem, but he must have made some really great target fire right there, and he was able to clean that up. And now it's basically just tank Viking here. There's only 8 Marines with this army, and the Vikings from Clem not quite enough to win the air war, but they are enough to push this this wave of aggression back. However, Clem, he's got his 3-3 very nearly done. His +2 vehicle weapons just about halfway done. And, well, Arctur, there's been a few times where I've caught his army, and it's just kind of sitting there unsieged.
My God,
and this is one of those times, and he is going to get punished for it very hard. 4 tanks going down for free.
Man, Marines for nothing and tanks for free. A couple Marines going down there, but honestly, Clem dodging those tank shots pretty well and making Arctur pay for his crimes there. Arctur desperately trying to retreat, and Clem saying, you didn't say the magic word. And didn't siege up his tanks there. So a really nice snipe from Clem. The tank count now 16 to 11. As we said earlier, Clem's superior tank production really showing here. Luckily, Arctur has swapped over that second factory. He's working on his +3/+3, but this game went from entirely in Arctur's favor to now Clem looking like a powerhouse.
Yeah, and Clem behind taking this 5th base with that high-yield geyser, that high-yield gas. We are going to see him go up into the 3 factory setup, a double armory setup, so he's going to be switching into air, most assuredly. Fusion core, that's going to be range libs. And yet, it could also be for battle cruisers. Now, this turret was never actually finished at the natural. Oh man.
Luckily, 2 of them are there to drive him away, but that's a cute little move from Clem. He's still going to unload, but there's enough here from Arctur to probably drive him away. Yeah, I think so. Arctur's army now split really interestingly. He's got half of his army on this west side, and half of the army over on the east side posturing in as though he wants to push this position that Clem's at. But Clem scans, doesn't see too much there, and he's going to push back out. Interesting disengagements here, but both players staying active on 2 different sides of the map at once, which is very difficult to do.
Yes, and very dangerous, too. Now, we do see Arctur kind of converging with all of his army in the same spot, but the tanks were a little bit unsieged. However, he loses 1 tank, but gets a huge set of volleys on the Marines. Now, I want to point out, Clem has gone up to all of his gases on his bases, whereas Arctur has elected to not mine from these gases, which means that, literally, as I say
Caster curse!
Absolutely. The number of times I've done that where I'm like, I'd love to see player X do this.
Oh, yeah.
Although when you do that, you look super smart. But when you're like, oh, the player hasn't done this, then that's when they bamboozle you.
Yeah. I was going to call out Clem on having his gases incorrectly saturated, but he figured it out. So Exactly. But good point. Arctur a little bit late on those gases. We can see the gas bank for Clem now over at 1,700. Both players with a huge bank. They're getting up to monopoly numbers now in their army, but that's because they're maxed out. It's time to start trading.
Yeah, and both of them trying to go up even into a 6th base. We have Clem lit, floating his over, whereas Arctur, Clem, just a hair out of vision of that bottom command center. And we are going to see Clem move on to the left side of the map here with a few tanks. This is a very interesting little push. He is just going to siege up, and this is kind of that trap you were talking about earlier, and that's some nice shots right there.
My God, that was horrifying. He's going to lose all his bio, of course. Should unsiege these tanks and get him out of here. The Liv's going to push him away. But that's opened the door now for him to siege up on the low ground and try and take these fights. His Vikings are going to get pummeled by a couple Marines, but the Vikings are going to win the fight here. And if Clem can establish solid air dominance, that means the tank battles that are to come are going to be huge. But most importantly, look at Clem's production tab right now. Look what he's adding on back home. Starports. Lots of them. He's up now to... what is he at? 7 starports? Oh my gosh. And they've got to be for Liberators. He's got 4 Libs on the way. A Liberator range is finished up. And Liberators are going to be the golden ticket here against these tank battles, if it comes to that.
There's like no Marines with this. There's nothing to actually guard. There's Liberators, Vikings, and tanks. There are no Marines with this army. It's literally these 2 that just came in. And Arctur is going to actually get a really great fight off the back of it.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that was too vulnerable, but not the case.
I agree completely. Clem, I think being, a bit overstaying his welcome, overplaying his hand a bit. And now we can see the Viking count way ahead now for Arctur, 10-2. But the Liberator count going in Clem's favor. Now, Clem's making 6 Vikings at a time. So he should be able to catch up here, but there might be a moment or two for Arctur to push up. We should point out the upgrades fairly even for these 2 players. +1 vehicle plating is done for Clem, and he is working on +1 air weapons, and that could be a big difference in their builds here. Clem going for air weapons, whereas Arctur staying with those tanks, going for vehicle weapons instead. I think Clem's transition to air Sky Terran is going to be a lot more effective, but the question is, can he get there in time, Steadfast?
That is a really important question. Because of all the production that Clem added on, he's been trading slightly less efficiently, and Arctur did take that 6th base on location. Arctur has a crazy big bank right now, and Clem, he barely has any, but he is about to find a lot of tanks on their own. Gonna grab 3 of them, and, well, this Viking fight is gonna go in the favor of Arctur, but with the Marines on the ground and great splits from Clem, he may be able to close the distance. Yes, he is absolutely going to move in here. Arctur's going to maneuver the rest of his army back into place, but that is plenty of time for Clem to siege up. He actually already has 6 tanks now sieged up in a position that has locked Arctur out of this 6th base location.
Oh man, 16 tanks to 9, and Clem abusing his zone control in the southeast corner of this map. As you said, he's able to take out this planetary fortress easy peasy, scouting with that medevac, and now Arctur's in a very difficult spot. He's kind of pinned, and if he wants to break out, he's going to have to do something drastic. If he waits, if he's cautious, if he's patient, if he's defensive, he's just going to lose this game because he's going to get starved out, choked out by Clem, who's regaining this income advantage as that bottom base goes down. And
yeah, and even though it's still up for now, we're going to see a big surround attempt coming in from Arctur. His +3 vehicle weapons did finish up, and he's got a couple more tanks at this particular area of the fight, but the base did go down, as you mentioned. And, well, 9 SCVs, just very sad right there. I saw like a blob of blue, and then it was just gone by the time I got there on the mini-map.
You've just described how every tank fight works for me when I play TVT. I'm just like, there was a blob of blue, and then it disappeared. Where did all my blue guys go? What happened? And then I'm like, oh, right, he's got a giant tank line, and I'm terrible at scouting, so I didn't see any of them there. Transitions coming down from Arctur, 2 Thors on the way, adding onto his Viking count. But again, I'm not sure if we're going to see these Thors become part of this fight. These players being so aggressive right now, trading very aggressively. Arctur forced into this position. Whether or not he takes a good trade here, he's way behind in this game. Even though the numbers may not look like it, he's now being choked out little by little. This stranglehold that Clem has on him is going to be very difficult for him to break.
Yeah, he might even lose another tank here. He does lose another tank. It was actually the high HP tank. I thought Clem was going to target fire and kill the low HP one, but he actually, with that +2 Liberator attack, he was able to kill that high HP tank even. And even grabbing a couple of SCVs, this is looking so brutal for Arctur, and I think his luck in this game is about to run out as 2 bases are under heavy siege right now, and he doesn't really have any way to break out. He does send his SCVs towards this newest base, but...
Sorry, his saving grace right now is that he does have a lot of Marines on the map. The Marine count 54 to 25. So if he can maneuver these bio units on top of the tanks, if he can sprint in, if he can stim in and get some damage done on the tanks, he may have a chance to break this. And then, of course, with Marines, he can just remax his army a little more quickly than Clem's able to, because Clem is not making a lot of Marines right now. But I just don't know. It does look like Arctur's in an almost unsalvageable situation here. Let's see if he can clear this at least.
He does win the Viking War, which means he's able to clear that Liberator. Thor adding a little bit of DPS on the ground, and, well, Clem's tanks in the back, they will be enough to push Arctur from crushing that army, but it was that was a bit of a cleanup. However, the Liberator count is now just absurd, but Vikings do very well against Liberators, and, well, the Liberators siege up, but they're not going to be able to do too much against Viking Thor, and Arctur, he actually takes a pretty great fight there. Now, Clem's bank is the issue here. And army supplies are similar, but...
Remember 5 minutes ago when Arctur had like 5,000 minerals in the bank? Good times for Arctur. Aw. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying, Steadfast?
No, just saying, yeah, he's freaking broke. And Clem, he is going to cruise to a 10-0